Another defeat, making it 4 losses in the opening 7 games. Our worst start to a Premier League campaign in 34 years. And I've got no words after that defeat. I honestly think, what was that? 78% possession, not 19 shots, and we could not put the ball in the back of the net. It was like the players didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to create. They didn't know how to do the basics of football. And it was really, really worrying watching that game. It was just pure frustration because to have 78% possession, to play 730 passes when Palace only managed 200 passes all game, and for it to be so easy for Palace to defend, you have to go, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And we're going to talk about what the biggest problem was. I think it's to do with the second phase. I think it's to do with the midfield. And I think there's some problems in the final third. I think there's some criticisms of Ten Hag, but I'm not Ten Hag out. I'm not going to turn on Ten Hag, and I'll explain why in a second. But one thing I'll give to Crystal Palace, because they scored with their only attack of the game. And yes, they had a bit of luck. When does a defender ever score a volley like that? And why didn't we mark the defender? But you have to give it to Crystal Palace. They defended incredibly well. And maybe we're just bad. Maybe we're just that predictable that every time we get the ball, it's switched to play, long ball over the top. Every time we go 1-0 down, instead of playing the ball and passing and trying to build up like we do at the first 20 minutes, we play well the first 20 minutes, we try to build up the ball well. As soon as we go a goal behind, we start running out of ideas, doing the long ball, switching the play. Maybe it's really predictable for Crystal Palace, but I will give them this. They defended really, really well. But for me, I think Phil made a really good point here that I want to share with you, and this was my initial thoughts. He says a really worrying and unacceptable defeat, really, and that's absolutely true. We shouldn't be losing that game. To have that much possession, Crystal Palace defended well, but Crystal Palace went at it today. I don't think Crystal Palace even got out third gear today. It was worrying. It was ridiculous how easy it was for them to defend against us because we moved the ball slowly. It's the exact same attack, ping it wide, cross it in. It's not good enough. And look, we've got injuries, and I understand that, and I am trying to be rational. I will criticise Ten Hag, but I won't turn on Ten Hag. But from a United perspective, where was the identity? Where was the style of play? What were they doing? There was nothing there. And I see people turning on Rasmus Højlund, and personally, I think it's completely and utterly unfair to turn on Rasmus Højlund. Yes, he wasn't particularly good today, but you've got to look at Rasmus Højlund and go, where were the chances for Rasmus Højlund? Where was the opportunity for Rasmus Højlund to score a goal? There wasn't. You see Haaland get chance after chance after chance of his sitters. Where was there one good cross into Højlund today? When was there one good ball into Højlund today? I saw people critical of Højlund. I saw a few people trying to blame Højlund. Højlund is not to blame. I will tell you that for a fact. I tell you what the biggest problem was, and the Devil's DNA highlighted this, is we sort of run out of ideas, and it's the second phase of progression. Now we brought in Onana, we're a little bit better in the first phase. Lindelof was poor today. Lindelof needs to be dropped, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this is the problem as well. We cannot get the ball into the final third consistently to sustain attacks and create quality chances. We have all of this possession, but how much time and was that possession just spent in our own half, Lindelof and Varane passing to each other, and then we'd get the ball to the midfield, and then it would just be pinged. We really struggle at actually building up play in the midfield. Now, I think if Amrabat starts to play in midfield when we get our left back, that will help because Amrabat's better in possession. I think Kobbie Mainoo coming back is massively going to help with that problem. And maybe we missed Hannibal Mejbri today. Part of me thought, take off Rashford and put Hannibal Mejbri in the midfield to add that balance, add that sustainability. Because while I thought Mason Mount had a brilliant game, I thought Bruno was okay. Casemiro was awful. I can't lie. He was awful today. The midfield lacked that balance. That Bruno, Casemiro, Mount, it just lacked that balance. It needs a fourth midfielder in there. And Amrabat came in to invert here and there. But because Rashford doesn't track back or do his job at left back, then the left back situation that's left open, that gives Palace a chance to attack. For me, it was building up in this second phase as well. Maybe you've got to question Ten Hag with this. We seem to play well the opening 20 minutes. We go a goal down, and when we go a goal down, we lose. We forget what the tactics are. We forget how we're meant to play. We forget how we're meant to pass the ball, and then we start going long. We start ball over the top, switching the play, become really predictable as well. And for me, why can't we just build up through the midfield? I know we don't have Bruno, Casemiro, and Mason Mount aren't the type of players that are known for building up through the midfield, that aren't the type of players known for being brilliant in possession, and we do need one of those players. I think Mejbri can do that, Mount can do that, not Mount can do that, Mejbri can do that, Mainoo can do that, Amrabat can do that. Maybe we need to play a diamond, maybe we need to bring them in midfield, but that was really, really poor today. I think Rashford was really bad today. Rashford should have come off earlier. I thought Garnacho was good. When Garnacho came on, I thought he was brilliant. Next game, I'd start Garnacho ahead of Marcus Rashford. I thought Casemiro was particularly poor. He was losing all of his duels, and Casemiro needs protection. Casemiro cannot play in a single pivot. He needs to play in a double pivot or a midfield four. He's not working quite now. I think Lindelof was poor. I actually think Maguire should start over Lindelof next game. I think Delo had a good game. I think Mount had a good game, and I think Garnacho had a good game. I think Pellistri wasn't great, but Pellistri did his job off the ball. Højlund did his job off the ball, but the final third, we just created nothing. And part of that is on the attackers for not doing enough in the final third, but another big part of that is on actually we weren't giving the players in the final third the ball and the good opportunities. I think Rashford massively missed Luke Shaw doing those overlapping, and Rashford kind of looked lost. It didn't work with Amrabat there. But at the end of the day, I'm not making an excuse for Rashford. He was poor. He was losing the ball. He wasn't tracking back. Rashford, I think, needs to be dropped. I think he was playing with an injury for that game as well. But a lot of people are turning on Ten Hag, and look, I will criticise Ten Hag. The subs were too late. The balance wasn't working. But this is the cycle at United. Appoint a new manager, sign overpriced players because of horrendous recruitment and negotiation strategy. Then we say we back the manager. Finish in the top four, take dividends every year, and let the club rot with no proper infrastructure and $1 billion in debt, and create toxicity and bad briefs and take over process. Second season, let the manager down bad signings. Basically because we secured UCL, get him his B and C players. This leads to underperformance, leads to uproar from the fans, sack the manager. This is why I'm not Ten Hag out. I will criticise Ten Hag. Ten Hag got it wrong today. I'm worried about the lack of identity. I'm worried that we had 78 possession and ran out of ideas. I think the criticism of Ten Hag is justified, but this is why I won't go on Ten Hag. I think we can criticise him. I think the criticism is justified. But if anyone here wants to blame the manager entirely for the defeat, you're crazy. It's the people above the manager. We could sack Ten Hag and we'll be in the same cycle. This cycle won't end until the manager goes. Not till the manager goes. This cycle won't end until the owners go, to those higher than Ten Hag go. It's also down to players not being good enough. We've had players here for years that we know aren't good enough. There's a lot of issues at United. There's injuries that doesn't help us as well. But one of the main problems is injuries, lack of identity, lack of athleticism. We're too slow. But I think our biggest problem is how we react when we go 1-0 down. What is this? That is our biggest problem. How we react when we go 1-0 down. That is the most worrying thing for me. That is the biggest problem for me. Every time we go 1-0 down, we just are poor. And that's what I don't like. And look, what I will say is there were positives. Mason Mount was good. Garnacho was good. Delo was decent again. I understand there's a lot of injuries. I understand there's a lot of problems. And I understand that VAR was a disgrace. We should have had a penalty, and we've been unlucky with VAR. But that can't be an excuse anymore. Like I'm saying this now, we can't keep saying we can't. Yes, VARs. We've had no luck with refs. We've had no luck with VARs, but we weren't good enough today anyway. And look, people will blame Rashford. People will blame Bruno. I don't think Bruno was particularly bad. I think Rashford was, but there's a lot more to it as well. Lindelof was poor. Casemiro was poor. It just didn't work. I think bring Mesbury in, go back to a 4 in midfield, play some split strikers, maybe play Højlund up top for me as well. Look, it's 4 defeats early in the season, so it's not reactionary. But, it is worrying. We just look so sloppy. We look so out of it. And, there were some positives, but for me, 7 goals in 7 games, we're not scoring. There's a lack of game plan when it comes to scoring. And in the past, we've defended so well. So when we haven't scored, we've been getting these 1-0 wins. All of a sudden, we're not defending well because Casemiro is not protecting the back four. We've got these defensive injuries. We're not keeping the clean sheet. That's the problem as well. But look, I still think we'll turn it around. People can call me crazy. Look at Liverpool last season. Liverpool, the start of last season, were awful. They had their injury crisis and they turned it around. I think we will have a really slow and bad start to the season. But I think come end of the season, if we stick with it, I think we'll be like Liverpool, probably finish 5th, but 5th will get you in the Champions League. I think we're going to be like Liverpool last year. Really poor start to the season. Shouts for Klopp out last year, all of that stuff. And then come an end of the season, it turns around. Let me know your thoughts. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.